And happy Friday, PSWs and friends across Ontario and Canada. Welcome to PSW Podcast, where we come to you guys live every single Friday at 11 a.m. and talk about the truths and the reality of the PSW world. My name is Miranda Romanovich. I'm the CEO of the Ontario PSW Association and the Canadian Support Workers Association and host of PSW Podcast. And I am joined yet again by my co-host, Ian De Silva, who's the Chief Operating Officer of both associations as well. And it's Friday. It's almost March. Ian, it's almost
There.
March. Can you believe it?
Couple hours. We'll be there. Very exciting.
It's very exciting. Yes.
Tough winter. Really fun
Yes.
winter in Southern Ontario right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully March will not be so bad. But
Yes, exactly. Hopefully, we get some more warm weather.
yeah,
Today, we're here to talk to you guys about the unfiltered OPSWA. So, the association hears from PSWs on the daily, where it be on our social media platforms or through email, where you guys share what's going on with you guys in the field and the things that the association really needs to focus on. And yes, before we really get going, I have to mention I am in the new OPSWA office in Cambridge. I am no longer sitting in my home office. So it's a bit of a different setup now. So just bear with us as we get through it. But yeah, Ian, it's been an interesting week in OPSWA world, has it not?
yeah, a lot of things are coming to light this week, and we're seeing a lot of different themes that are crystallizing, unfortunately, across
Yeah.
the sector. So where do you want to start?
Well, I think I want to start with the fact that we keep always going back to some of the same issues over and over again. And I think we keep going, the PSWs keep going back to them because there's no resolution. There's no, you know, it's just not talked about enough to the point where anyone's really looking to make change. And what I say by anyone is the government or employers. And so I really want to touch first and foremost on something that has been kind of a continuing conversation since we did talk about it on PSW podcast probably about a month ago. And that is the what could you have done differently phrase that the personal support workers get asked continuously by their employers and supervisors in their workplaces. And I want to hit on that today, Ian. So let's start there.
I think so too. It's one of those sneaky phrases that is really is cruel, I think, actually, to put that phrase upon a PSW, especially a PSW that suffered abuse. What could you have done better after you've been abused? How are you supposed to answer that, especially when you're not responsible for any of the decisions that put you in that position? Neither is the patient, but you're responsible for discussing how to solve a macro health issue across Ontario at the bedside. Somehow you're responsible for it. You are PSWs. How is that fair?
But not only that, they're not just responsible for that, but what we're hearing from our members and from PSWs alike, through conversations on our social media, is they're responsible for everything. So the PSW is literally getting blamed for every little thing. Where even if it falls on the nurse's docket or on the dietitian's docket or on the OT's docket, the PSW is the one at the end of the day who is being reprimanded for something that is out
Totally.
of their control.
Yep. That's what we're seeing. Where a lot of reports coming in. That's what we're seeing a lot of, and it's part of that whole culture of abuse, culture of fear. If you don't take the blame, we're going to fire you. And it's like, well, what's ridiculous? Now, we did get a comment from some comments online did explain the position, and we do agree. Technically, PSWs are responsible for handling some of the nuances of the care situation, behaviors. There are strategies. Yes, you are responsible. But we have to remember these regulations and these best practices were developed in the assumption that that's a fully staffed shift.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the problem. So when you have a PSW that's supposed to have three people or whatever the ratio should be, 1 to 8, and that PSW is doing 1 to 32, then how can the expectation of that same expectation apply in that situation? It can't. But leadership at the management level says, "Oh no, no, it still does. We're not going to give you any help, but you're still responsible for all of the abuses and all the issues that happen on that floor. You have a great day." That's literally what we're seeing. At least that's what we're seeing a lot of right now. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But when we're short staffed, they want me to do what resident care and I have anxiety. And as a PSW, do I have the right to refuse if I do not feel safe? These are questions that are now coming in through our TikTok.
So
So let's address some of these, right? Like, do I have the right to refuse if I feel safe? Absolutely, you have the right to refuse if you feel unsafe in a situation, and if you get but I mean, let's back it up,
Because
right?
TSA doesn't apply to a lot of things when it comes to healthcare. That's the issue, and it's the Employment Safety Employment DSA Act. So you can refuse, but these have to be like serious reasons to refuse. And
Yes.
this is the problem. So if like a right to refuse work, for example, if you're in an industrial setting and they're asking you to clean some machinery that you know to be dangerous and you're risking your life, you have the right to refuse if the occupational health and safety elements aren't fulfilled. However, if you are in a PSW situation and the issue is more new, less clear, you might not be given the same rights to refuse care. So really be careful when you're saying refuse care. The patient's coming at you with a blade. Yeah, you can that's obvious for sure. Yes. So yeah, just be mindful of that. Um, but really take it back to a patient safety focus when you're refusing care. Why are you refusing care? To protect yourself, or is this dangerous to the patient? Our primary role as PSWs is protecting, doing activities of daily living, making sure that person's safe. Sorry, I'm losing my voice.
Well, that's okay, but that's true though. And for those that are watching, Ian had the flu and is just coming back this week, and still is dealing with the after effects of it. But that is true. And when you're dealing in a human environment, so our core care is human beings. It's really difficult to say when it is unsafe versus safe for the person to be providing that care. Now, that being said, I dealt with a member last night. Interesting situation. True story. The PSW was working an overnight shift in long-term care with her and her partner, and they had gone into this resident's room 3 times to provide care. And the next morning, the resident made a huge complaint to the DOC, stating that they had never done any care on him. He didn't receive any care whatsoever, and that, just making a huge fuss about it. Now, thankfully, this DOC is very much so on the PSW side. And then I asked, well, why are there two of you going into the rooms? And she said, because of residents like that. So in situations like that, if you feel, for instance, too, like if you have an aggressive resident, if you have, an aggressive resident, really, at the end of the day, I can't say much more than that. Somebody that is known to just lash out for no reason or whatever, I would absolutely recommend having at least two PSWs in that room,
Of course.
because it's not only a safety for yourself and your fellow PSW, but also for the resident, because like it's a lot of times they can't control that. Now, I'm not saying that every resident is guilty free and completely innocent, because a lot of them like to stir the pot, which is human nature as well. But in that case, I mean, they did the right thing having two PSWs going in. We always, because at the end of the day, it's like if someone were to come to us, like someone asked me the other day, they said, well, what would you do if this type of individual needed care? Well, when you become a personal support worker, like I am, and I'm in my 20th year as a PSW, even though I'm not frontline anymore, that doesn't matter, because you almost take an oath of sorts when you become a personal support worker to provide care to anybody. It
Yeah,
does not matter their culture, their skin color, their gender. It does not matter at all.
their age either.
Their age either, exactly. And so that's something that we also have to remember, is we have to find ways around the aggressiveness, ways around the safety issues in order to provide that care, because that is our end goal.
Yep.
Our
Maria
end
has a follow-up question.
Victoria has a follow-up question. Okay, thank you. What happens when the PSW you're working with doesn't help you when you're getting beat up? Oh, damn, Victoria.
Wow, Victoria. So,
Uh,
well, first of all,
well,
there.
Ian.
Okay, first of all, let's look at this from a legal right point of view. If there's a Samaritan element here, so you should be intervening. If someone's getting beat up, at least making an effort to restore peace. This applies to everyone actually in Ontario, I think, across the board. Um, if that person's not involving themselves in a behavior, then that person needs to be reported. The PSW's job is to be involved and supportive. That's my opinion on the matter. I know it's uncomfortable. If that PSW had a psychological freeze, that's another issue that could have happened. There's a lot of intersecting
There's a
things.
lot of intersecting things here, and I agree with you, Ian. But I will tell you that you should report that personal support worker if they are not helping you while you're getting beat up by a resident. Um, it's one of those things where it's that's wrong. And if that PSW is freezing in that moment, you got to give a little bit of reprieve on that. And
Of
if
course.
they act right after, of course, you're going to freeze in that moment, especially if you've never seen that happen before. But if the PSW just stands there and allows the resident to abuse you and doesn't go get help and doesn't intervene, then you absolutely have to report that personal support
Yeah,
worker.
let's discuss that PS.
It's been reported and nothing's being done.
Okay, so when we're doing reporting and nothing's being done, then this is why we need, this is why people need to register with the HESCAPOA. This is why we need to have the provincial regulatory structure better in place. We need PSWs to join it. Because right now it's a dead end. You're going to report it to a union, to steward, to management. They're going to be like, well, what are we going to do about it? We can't do anything. We're not going to bother. And no one's going to enforce it. So we're just going to ignore it. That's the
You
truth.
know, and that's the truth of it. And right there it goes to like the PSW not feeling supported by their colleagues and not feeling safe on the floor. And these are issues that yes, you do have to deal with. And you need to ask yourself, okay? You need to ask yourself, do I want to work here? I mean, come on. I mean, I hear from Ian, you and I hear from PSWs all the time.
This
And
this
we
is
hear
another issue. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
all the time where they say, well, I'm not respected in my workplace. I don't work well with my colleagues. I get bullied on the job. And then when we say to the PSW, well, then you need to find
Another
another
job.
job. And then they go, oh, no, 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 I can't leave my residence.
Yeah. I call no. Okay. PSWs, if you're out there and you're believing that you're resident, that you are the last line of defense for your residents, that's if that's really what you believe, you need to leave that job immediately, okay? Because you're not doing any good. You're really just keeping a band-aid on it, and you're destroying yourself, and you're cashing in your own well-being to protect a system which is not benefiting you or protecting these people either. So,
Exactly. That's what I always say is like PSWs, you guys need to realize how valuable and
well, absolutely.
essential you are to the front line. And if you yourself are being abused, are not being treated fairly, why the hell are you sticking around? And I'm going to tell you, because the employer's winning. If you do that and you don't leave that job or you don't stand up for yourself, then, I don't want to hear this, there's no change in the sector. Why hasn't there been change? Because if you don't stand up for yourself and you don't do what you need to do in order to care for yourself,
That's true.
then how is change supposed to happen? I mean, yes, as from an association level, we absolutely do, advocate and lobby for different things. But we need you guys to put your voice with us. We need you to scream as loud as we do about these issues because only then will there be active change. And it's not about getting the government's attention on this. It's about informing the public and letting the public know that these are the realities of frontline healthcare in Ontario. And these are the realities of what the PSWs are going through. And it's not right. And there needs to be change
Well,
because anything that happens to the PSW, right, Ian, directly affects those in their care. And at the association, we are very much a patient centered organization where we do look at what the patient needs and we look from the patient up, not from the doctors down.
no, and our system does tend to look from the doctors down. I mean, it's a lot of there's a lot of well-meaning things coming from senior medical in Ontario, in Canada rather, about understanding the value of an interprofessional work team, understanding the need for improving in culture. But I mean, at the end of the day, by the time it gets down to the PSW, it's just a theory that's more of a rumor. The one thing I also want to talk about really quickly is setting expectations appropriately for long-term care. We're seeing a lot of people, PSWs that are saying that they're not comfortable going to long-term care because not everyone in long-term care is, for example, in a geriatric situation. So what I want to make sure PSWs understand is that long-term care is not just for geriatric individuals. This is for any human that requires long-term care anywhere. So you could be in your 30s in long-term care. There is going to be more intergenerational use of long-term care facilities. It is going to be, while it does remain a focus of geriatric and end-of-life care, please understand this is becoming a more general thing. It's replacing the old institutions that we used to have. Instead of having the old asylums, now we're moving into long-term care. It's just titled differently, but we're being set up for the same kind of pathway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
please meet your expectations accordingly. When you're going into long-term care, you're going into a general institutional setting with represents a cross-section of the population, not just one section of the population.
Thank you for saying that, Ian, because that was a big part of the conversation.
It
I
is.
believe the other night on TikTok Live,
It was.
on OBSWA After Dark. Yeah. And when they were saying that they're now dealing with a lot of mental health issues in long-term care homes. And so that really, my call out then to PSWs is make sure you get mental health training. Make
No,
sure that you
absolutely,
do. You
yes.
want to go work in long term care, make sure you get some training in mental health. And this is not a pitch, and I swear it's not, but we do have a mental health program for PSWs through the association. It is literally just a workshop. It gives you an overview and some in depth knowledge about mental health and what you're dealing with. So I believe the next dates are going to be up in the next week or so. So make sure you guys look at that because it's important, number one, to always continue to build your portfolio as a personal support worker, but it's also important to get that training for places that you want to work. Even in the hospital, you should have mental health training. And if any PSW comes at me on here and says, I got mental health training in my course, I'm going to call your bloody bluff because you get maybe a day of mental health training when you are doing your PSW program. So we really need to, the PSW program is the basics. Let's be honest,
Yep,
okay?
absolutely.
Everything from there is up to you to build. And that's why I always say find what you love to do, specialize, get that extra training because that's what's going to make you stand out as a personal support worker. But most importantly, it's going to equip you
Mhm.
with what you need to be safe in your job as a personal support worker.
And further to that, get into the habit of this as a personal support worker. The personal support worker is changing from the fly by night. We used to be kind of just nebulous to a
Yeah.
very established profession of members of the interprofessional health team. We are navigating this change. It's going to take a bit of time, but it requires PSWs themselves to take onus on themselves, especially those who are looking to continue their work in healthcare. One big part of being, and I'm a little bit of my area here, but when you go into nursing, for example, if you decided you wanted to move from PSW to nursing, continuing education is a big part of nursing.
Oh, yeah.
Get into the habit of continuing education if you want to continue on to nursing and MP, whatever. Huge part of it. Every profession has continuing education, teaching, engineering, electricians, plumbing, everything is always changing. So we really want to get the PSWs in the habit of that and preparing that population for the new institutional settings that we're going to be having in Ontario that are being built left, right, and center right now. So
Oh yeah, but won't be ready for the next 5 to 7 years. But they're being built, and so we'll take that. And you are right, Ian, because the PSW is no different, like you said, from nursing, from OT, from doctors, from anything. The healthcare system is constantly evolving. It is constantly changing. Interesting part, when I did my PSW program in 2006, I actually had better training
oh, I
than
believe it.
what
Yeah.
I see coming out now. And so that's why I push it so hard because so I have a university degree and I was busier in my PSW program than I ever was in my university degree because of the amount of information and theory and practical and hands-on that I had to learn. In a good world, in a great world, the PSW program would be 2 years. It should be 2 years in all essence with everything that we have to learn. But that's a battle for another year, for another decade, because frankly, we got enough battles going on right now. But it's really important that they do this and that they do upgrade their skill set because, yeah, everyone says, oh, anybody can be a PSW. No, not anybody can be a PSW, and I always say it takes a special sort of person. Yeah, it does. But it also takes a person that wants to grow in the profession. It takes a person that wants to learn about these things. How do I help people better? How can I be a better personal support worker?
Yeah.
Right? That's what nurses do. That's what doctors do. So why the heck don't PSWs do it? Well,
And
now we're calling them out.
that's okay. And a lot of them do. So we're seeing a huge change in the professions. A lot of the newer PSWs and a lot of the older ones are all starting to see the value of education. They need it. They realize that you want to be, to use an old term, you want to be competitive. You want to be marketable in your PSW, in your career, and make sure that the employer understands your value, the real value that you have. And make sure that you psychologically prepare for some of the elements. We're seeing a lot more concerns about bullying. This is a what's the word? It's omnipresent. It's an ever present situation in healthcare. And I think it goes
Wait,
back
I
to the
can't
beginning
believe
of
it.
healthcare.
I know. Florence Nightingale, I am sure there was bullying all the way back then, but it just amazes me how that topic keeps coming back up and how these cultures, and that's where I'm kind of going to go back to what I was saying earlier, Ian, about how, don't just sit in your job and go into the break room and complain about things in your workplace in the break room and then go back on the floor and then go home and be miserable and say, I get treated like crap, I get bullied, I get this, I get that. Stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if someone was doing this to your kid, if someone was doing this to one of your residents or your patients or your clients, you would stand up for them.
Hmm.
So why are you any less important than those people?
And here's the case in point. If you're so unimportant, then how come you're always being asked what you could do better? So, like, wait a minute, you're the linchpin of this entire organization.
Remember, they got to remember that 67% of the workforce in long term care are personal support workers. The same number for home care.
Yeah,
So if there aren't personal support workers, why everyone keeps crying that there's no PSWs, not enough PSWs,
bullshit.
is because we're the ones that are going to be taking the healthcare system into the next millennia. We're going to be the ones that are going to be needed the most.
Yeah, the PSWs are going to be relied upon. I mean, there's no way around it. There's going to be fiscal cuts coming in Ontario. This is going to happen. I think everyone knows the writings on the wall that economy is under a major transition. So we want to make sure about that. And also being prepared. A lot of our long-term care homes are run by private companies. One big private company whose stock has risen significantly since June of 2024.
Since the new minister of long-term care took over. Yeah.
Well, 183% or 138% increase in a year and a half since the minister took over office is interesting.
Not very.
But we'll leave it there because I think that goes a little bit different than the direction we have to. We have to ask some questions about that relationship, of course, because
And we will. And we will be having a PSW podcast where we do talk about and ask those questions about really what is going on
well,
in healthcare. And I mean, can I just point out and the massive divide between the ministries and the front line.
oh my
Like
God.
it's like the ministries are saying one thing and then the front line is saying something completely different.
Oh,
And
well,
really truthfully, the only ministry who's listening, believe it or not, is the Ministry of Health.
right now, the Ministry of Long-Term Care, all they're doing is building long-term care facilities. They seem to have outsourced to a lot of private companies to run and build these companies, at least to build these facilities. I get it. They that was the path they want to go.
Yeah.
But I think we want to talk a little bit more about the concentration of corporate power within the long-term care sector overall and how this is going to be impacting policy development, planning, and patient safety going forward. This is a huge issue. And there is a lot of look. I mean, just look at the stock prices for some of these things since certain ministers took over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
It's
this is questionable to put it in
it's
that.
very, very questionable. But there's a lot of things I question currently right now about the Ministry of Long-Term Care. But I mean it's something going back to PSWs. My God, you guys are being thrown everything right now. You guys are
Every
being thrown everything at you. You're being thrown all these policy changes, the new regulation of the personal support workers. You're still being asked to perform miracles daily, and then be asked, what could you have done differently when it backfires on you for no fault of your own? There's a lot happening. And I want to say that I'm proud to see a lot of PSWs. I mean, I say all the time, speak up for yourself. There are PSWs that are doing that. There are PSWs, I'm more than I've ever seen, that are really stepping forward as leaders in the healthcare space, and are saying, like, enough is enough. We are a profession. We are about to be regulated. It will become mandatory at some point. And we need to be treated with that professional respect. And it's going to take a long time for us to get there, guys. I mean, PSW has been around since 1998. We're just getting the regulation happening now. It's been a fight. It's been one hell of a fight, let me tell you. But I mean, it's important because I mean, what we just had the other day, we got sent that link about the male PSW in London who has been charged with sexual assault.
but where was that person working?
It was, I think, at London Health Services.
Okay.
Yeah, like the
This is why
hospital.
you need, why you want to make sure employers who are hiring people in home care and retirement homes, you need to make sure these people are part of the HESCAPOA. Like, there's at this point,
And the OPSWA.
in the
And the
OSWA,
OPSWA.
especially, sorry, yeah, obviously, in the OSWA,
Yeah.
you want to make sure, first of all, that they have, that there is an enforcement mechanism in place. Um, and you also want to make sure that these people have a professional association at their point. I'm seeing a lot of employers like, I don't want to hire a professional PSW. Cheap is good enough for our clients.
Yeah.
That's literally it.
5 stars.
Five
Right
stars. And
there.
if I can save a buck, I'm getting that cheapest, someone who's a PSW, something else, but I can save that dollar. So this is why we want to start putting this fence around this workforce a bit because it's driving your wages down. It's so simple. It's driving your wages down.
It's driving your wages down. You're not getting the professional respect. You're being asked, what could you have done differently?
Could you have done this?
Which I swear to God is my trigger line of 2026. Um, and like it's not fair to you guys, PSWs. It's not fair at all. And so we're corralling, we're putting the fence up, we're really working hard to put these standards forward, make it productive. The regulation will be changed, but it'll be a positive change in the end, because then people like this classic bleep 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 in London that got charged with sexual assault, all that does is make PSWs look bad. And I am really sick and tired of there not being a mechanism in place to deal with that and get his certificate stripped and ensure that he no longer ever works with the most vulnerable in our province. And, there has to be consequence.
How do we know the certificate was even real?
Amen to that too. If because from what we know, just for transparency reasons, everyone, he is not a HESCAPOA. He is not an OPSWA. So this person was not registered with either the professional association or the pseudo regulatory body. What
But
does
had,
that tell you?
it told me that the employer wanted somebody cheap and was willing to take a chance. That's what it tells me. They were more than happy to save money over than providing better service and safety. It's
Someone
that
has to go to
simple.
Baja Baja. Someone has to go to
That's
Baja
simple.
Baja.
It's that simple. They want to save a buck and get a cheaper fake PSW. And now this company, now we got to reach out to this organization
Yeah, exactly, exactly,
and
and
say,
possibly the
"What's going
London
on,
Police.
guys?"
Exactly, like, oh, yeah, exactly. So, I mean, today's been kind of, as per OBSWA, chaotic in our conversation. However, I think we hit a lot of nails on the head. I think that, thank you for the PSWs on TikTok and on Facebook that are putting in comments and interacting with us. And we do, and I hope this proved to everyone and shown our PSWs that we do hear you, we do read these comments, we do discuss this behind the scenes, and we will be talking once a month about what you guys bring to the table and what you guys say to OPSWA. So I think it's important that your stories, your struggles as PSWs are talked about on this podcast so that we can put that forward to the public and let the public know things are not hunky dory in the
Yeah, this whole
PSW world.
no,
Um,
and
Hold on one
disregard the whole.
second here. We
Sorry.
just got a really big question. How can PSWs protect themselves legally when asked to perform duties outside of their scope? Justify. Um, if you're asked to do things outside of the scope of practice, that would be called a delegation. Okay. You need to be delegated by a regulated health professional or a family member if you're working privately for yourself, but there needs to be a delegation form, documentation that is filled out, and that delegation is only for that particular client, resident, or patient. You cannot take that skill set and use it anywhere else without the delegation. You also need to be a member of the association, so you have that liability insurance, which is medical malpractice insurance, that will cover you and protect you if anything goes wrong. So that's the answer to that right there, guys. But keep those questions coming. Keep making it happen. Ian, any last words?
Probably, but I forgot them, so we're all good.
I apologize. We
Okay,
had a really
it's
good
okay.
question.
That was really important. That's an excellent question. Thank you for asking that question. There's nothing else. I think we've covered a lot today. We had a really wide ranging conversation, but we had a really interesting week with regards to feedback from the members and the public. So I'm
You
anything
got another
else?
question, real quick?
Go ahead, let's bring it on. We're in no rush. Sorry.
Okay. As nurses, how can we help protect our PSWs and the positions, HLs, they have assisting us. So Charles, what I would recommend is ensure that if there is delegation, that it's being filled out properly, because when a PSW is you, she knows Charles was a PSW first, now she's a nurse.
I,
That it falls on the license, right, of the nurse. So, and as for PSWs, recommend the association to them as well. Make sure they get that professional liability insurance, that oversight, that protections that are in place. You as a nurse probably understand that completely, being a part of your professional associations and having to have that medical malpractice professional liability insurance. Ian, anything to add to
real
that?
quickly, we understand that we're not attacking nurses. This our concerns this morning are systemic issues. So when we're discussing things from a nurse looking to the PSW, most nurses treat PSWs, a lot of them with great respect. And I think the issue that we're talking about is the nurses that we tend to interact with are DOCs who are very isolated and basically they don't have a lot of contact with them. So advocating for increase in PSW ratios to support the nursing staff, that's really what we need in long-term care.
Amen. Amen. Yep. No, thanks so much, Charles. Charles just said, so a message to all PSWs on Facebook and TikTok. She said, my PSWs are my everything. I value them wholeheartedly. So, it's there are good nurses out there, and Charles has been on our lives before, and that's why I know her. She was a
Yeah.
PSW, she's now a nurse. So there's a lot of understanding there. But that's a really good question. At the end of the day, we are a team and we need to act accordingly as that team. We all play vital, essential roles to the patients in Ontario. This is not a thing about egos. It's not about I know more than you. PSWs have their specific skill set, nurses have their specific skill set, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we all need to respect those skill sets and not step over any of the boundaries that are there.
One more thing. We also have to understand, and this applies to nurses, doctors, PSWs, patients, families. The system's under enormous stress. The common thread that runs through all of this is the frustration due to lack of staffing, which means shortages creates tensions, which tensions raise bullying. Hence, we have a bullying situation. We need more frontline healthcare workers on the job.
Yes,
That's
and we need to get employers to actually hire
hire
the
them,
amount of staff that they actually require to do the job.
not just have job postings and huge databases of staff that they can hire, but actually hire them. So we're calling out on the private companies that don't want to do it. You better, you gotta, because this
Matter, you have to.
gotta. All right.
Amen. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for joining us again on PSW Podcast. It was a longer one today,
A little
but
bit.
I think really important conversation. And we loved your questions. Thanks so much, everyone, for asking those questions and allowing us to answer them. We'll be back again next Friday with PSW Podcast. I'll be live tonight on TikTok for OPSWA After Dark at 7 p.m. And yeah, tomorrow's the grand opening of the OPSWA offices here in Cambridge. We're really excited about that. So the OPSWA team is all going to be together. And we have the job fair at the end of March. There's a lot happening at OPSWA. So make sure you guys head over to our website, which is available in our bio, either here on Facebook or on TikTok. And if you're not a member yet, make sure you jump on that. And information again is in our bio here on Facebook or on TikTok. Thanks everyone for joining us. Ian, it's always a pleasure talking with you both.
Always.
This is our vent session
Likewise.
with everyone. But thanks so much, everyone. And we'll be back next week with PSW Podcast. And with that, I'm going to say, OPSWA out.